Hi there everyone and welcome to Stamping with Sara. Today I'm really excited to show you a beautiful stamp set from our friends at Studio Light called Vintage Roses. I've got 4 projects to share with you today combining these stamps with the Picket Fence paper collection from Paper Wishes, and I'm going to add in some coloring with alcohol markers today. So let's take a closer look at our stamp set. Here you've got 4 individual stamps. So these are clear acrylic, easy to use on a MISTI stamp positioner or your clear acrylic blocks. And I'm going to flip over the package, and I think you can see these designs really well here too. So you've got a nice border that's 1.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches long. You've also got a nice block of text here with some typewritten words. You also have a nice focal image down here at the bottom with this open book, some butterflies, and some text down here as well. And then you've got a super useful little butterfly silhouette. So again, clear acrylic stamps, super easy to use, and these will go beautifully in combination with our paper pack. Now, this paper collection measures 6 inches by 6 inches and contains 24 coordinating sheets. And you can see the swatches here on the front of the package, but these are also really nice to flip through and take a closer look. Because they're double-sided, you can flip through and see how these designs will all coordinate beautifully. So you have some really nice geometrics. You've got some faux script in here as well, a little bit of collaging. The colors are absolutely beautiful. Really nice color palette here with those purples and the burgundies and some soft vintage coloring in here as well. This is a favorite. And this beautiful green, and then of course another floral design here as well. So we've got some really fun elements to play with today. Now, just a quick reminder before we start the demos. This webisode series has a coordinating subscription where you'll have early access to the stamps I'm using every month, delivered right to your door and at a discount. Plus, you'll receive some really fun goodies to go along. I'm so glad you're here today, so let's start stamping. Throughout today's webisode, I'm using tri-blend alcohol markers to color the stamped images. And there are lots of ways you can use these markers. One of my favorite techniques is to highlight an image with a kind of halo effect. And you can see this on my stamped focal where the color blurs a little bit around the outside edges of the book, the text, and even these butterflies. And this is a really forgiving way to use the markers and helps to add softness to an image. So let's have a look. First, I'm going to stamp my book image onto a piece of plain white cardstock. And the cardstock I'm using is from the Hunky Dory Lightweight Cardstock Pad. And you've got just so much cardstock in here. This is a perfect weight and a really nice smooth cardstock for stamping. And I'm going to use my MISTI for the stamping part. You can, of course, also use a clear acrylic block. And the ink that I'm working with is the VersaFine Onyx Black Pigment ink, which works really nicely with alcohol markers. So I'm going to open up my MISTI. I've got my piece of cardstock secured in place, and I'll bring in my stamp. Now, of course, with the clear acrylic stamps, you've got a smooth side, and then you've got the side where your image is. So simply place this onto your cardstock, and then close up your MISTI and smooth that down, and the stamp will cling to the other side. And then from here, you can ink this up. So I'm just going to tap this gently onto my stamp and make sure that I've got the entire image covered. I think I've got a little extra ink over here, so I'm just going to grab a damp cloth and wipe that right off. And then close this up and smooth this down. Now, the nice thing about a MISTI is that if I happened to miss any areas of my stamped image, I can go back, re-ink this, and close it up again just as many times as I need to. Now that I've got this damp cloth close by, I can come in and clean off my stamp as well. So you can use a baby wipe or just a bit of a rag, and a little bit of water will do the trick too. Okay, so then I'm going to move aside my magnets, and I've got my stamped image ready to color. So from here, I'm going to bring back in my 3 markers that I'm using. And the 3 that I'm working with are Pale Pink, Ice Blue, and Fair Skin. Now, if you're new to tri-blend markers, you'll notice here you've actually got 3 shades of one color in one pen, which is really nice. So here where it says light, you've got your light color. Let's see, I'm going to turn this around so you can see all of them together. You've got your light, you've got your mid, and you've got your dark. So all 3 tones of the ice blue marker in one. And then the same thing, of course, for the pale pink and the fair skin. So coming in here, I'm going to start by highlighting some of my text down here at the bottom of my stamped image. And I can use any one of these 3 shades. Let's go for the mid, right in the middle there. And to do this, I'm just going to highlight the text just the way you would if you were doing your homework with a textbook and a highlighter. So I'm just adding a little touch of blue here. So I'm not coloring anything in. I'm just blending in a little bit of that color. So that's with my blue. Now for the book, I'm going to start with the fair skin, and this is a lighter color, so I'm going to work with the dark from here. And with this, I'm going to color in the book pages, so the center area of the book. And then I'm also going to come up here where these pages are kind of fluttering open. And when I color these, I'm not trying to stay in the lines. You can see that I've got outside of those lines there, which is exactly where I want this to be. So this is going to give kind of an offset printed look, one that I really like. So that's with the fair skin, and then I'll come back with the pale pink. And for this one, let's see, I think I'll go with the dark. And here I'm going to outline the stack of books. So I'm coming around the outside edges here. And again, going outside of those lines to make sure that I've got some nice shadowing in here. And this is going to make it look like the stack of books is kind of planted in the, on top of that text there as well. And then let's do our first little butterfly here. And then for our butterflies flying out from the book, I'm going to come back in with that ice blue. And in this case, let's just do the lightest of the color. Now again, there's nothing to color in because these images are silhouettes. So I'm just going around the outside edges. Really simple, really relaxing. There's no wrong way to do this. And so there you go. Then you've got a fun shadow halo effect on your stamped image. And this works for any of your stamped designs. Now you probably have noticed that I'm working onto my craft mat, and this is to protect my work surface. Although the Hunky Dory lightweight cardstock is perfect for stamping and for coloring in, and it won't bleed through, you can see that I've got a little bit of that ink showing around the outside edge. So you do just want to take care when you're working with alcohol markers because they are permanent. So don't want that to go onto your dining room table. So back to our card design, you can see here that I've die cut the stamped image, and I've used a die from the 8 labels die set, and then I've offset it with another label die cut from the same pack, and this is die cut with some of the brown patterned paper, and I've got those layered one on top of the other. Before adhering my stamped image down, I've actually gone around the outside edges also with that pale pink marker just to add a little bit of a shadow effect around the outside edges of the die cut piece. Then the front of my card has a combination of this really pretty pattern paper matted onto brown, and then I have a border of coordinating lavender paper going across the center. Now the Sending Smiles message is a script dazzle, and then I have a bow tied in a piece of pink ribbon. And this is from the 1/8 inch ribbon pack. This is a standard for me. I love using these ribbons. They add just a little hint of softness, not a whole lot of bulk on the front of your card. And then on the inside of the card, I have another die cut label shape, and this one has the script stamped with black and accented with ice blue marker. And then on top of the text, I've stamped some of the butterfly images. This overstamping technique is another favorite of mine, and it's a great way to use any solid or silhouette style stamp designs. You can stamp them on top of any background image, and because they're solid, they'll lay over the background really nicely. So I've got my 2 butterflies here, and then I've also added a couple more butterflies around the outside there. I've got some green pattern paper and another dazzle message down at the bottom to finish it off. I'm stamping more butterflies here, this time with the cocoa bean dye-based ink pad, and then embossing the images with clear embossing powder. So I think when I move this, you can see the shine of those 3 butterfly images there. Now, we talked a lot about embossing in the January webisode, but I'll do another quick demo here so you can see the process. Once again, I'm working onto my craft mat, and this is going to be really important as I'm working with heat. So let me bring in another piece of that hunky-dory cardstock, and I'm going to have the lid off of my embossing powder, so that's going to be ready to go. I've got my stamp on a clear acrylic block this time, and I'm going to be stamping again with that cocoa bean ink pad. Now, another thing I need to have on hand is just a piece of folded scrap paper, and this is going to help me catch my excess embossing powder so I can funnel it back into the jar. So all I need to do here is just ink up my butterfly and then stamp him or her onto the cardstock. And there we go. Now from here I'm going to work pretty quickly and add some of my embossing powder onto my stamped image. Tap off the excess, and then I'm going to funnel with my folded piece of paper, I'm going to funnel that embossing powder back into the jar. But for the heat embossing process, I'm going to place this down onto my craft mat and then simply melt that embossing powder. And there you can see that raised, shiny, and glossy image. So simple and easy to do. So that's what I've done for my 3 butterflies. Now I've also got 2 more areas on my card front with embossing. And this time I'm working not with the cocoa bean embossing or the cocoa bean ink pad, but with the Wow embossing pad. Now this is a clear pad, so it's going to give you a clear look. And then of course with our clear embossing powder, it's going to give you some very subtle looks. So on 2 sides of my card front, I've got this clear embossing using the text image. So this image here from our stamp set. And one is over here on this side. I've done some clear embossing onto that burgundy patterned paper from our paper pack. So it gives you a really subtle look. You can feel the raised image though, which is really cool. And then on this side, I've clear embossed that same text onto white cardstock and then colored over it with a tri-blend marker. So let's have a look at this process. And I've got a piece of white cardstock here where I've done my clear ink pad with my clear embossing powder, and I imagine it's probably pretty tricky for you to see. But when I bring in my marker, you'll be able to see this even better. Now this technique works really well with a dark color. So for this demo, I'm using the lavender blend, and I'm going to use the darkest of the 3 shades. So all I'm going to do here is scribble this color on, going right over that clear embossing. And the more color I add, the more dramatic the effect will be. So this is why you want to use a dark color of marker. And you can see how many times I'm going over this. but I think you can also start to see where those words are visible. So with my original card, I was using the green marker, and I went over it a couple of times to make sure that I had a lot of ink on my cardstock. You can see again where that is starting to show through. And then you can also come in with a damp baby wipe and just kind of pick off a little bit of the color from your raised embossed text. But I think you can see how cool that effect is. So let me show you again on my card here where I've got that green border here. This is of course that combination of the text image, and I've stamped it twice, so one image above the other so that I've got a continuous border, and that's going to give me another cool effect. Then on the rest of the card, of course, I've got my dazzle message. I've also got a really cool tone-on-tone look with a border die. And that border die is from the On the Edge card cutting die set. So let me show you this here. You've got 4 cutting dies included in this set, and these are really great, versatile designs. I've actually got a couple that are put onto a piece of cardstock so you can see one of each of those designs. They can go vertically, they can go horizontally. The butterflies image has some butterflies that can be popped up to be dimensional too. So this is a really handy die set for just about any card theme. So I've got this beautiful border die cut from white, and then it's on that white card blank. So it's giving me a cool tone-on-tone look. Then on the inside, I have another lacy border here. This time it's die cut from brown pattern paper and glued on top of another patterned paper design, also creating a subtle look. And then, of course, some more butterflies here, and you can see how versatile these little images are. And I'm also incorporating some small stickers from the script dazzle sheet to add in between the butterflies. For these 2 cards, I'm using this gorgeous and versatile rose border in 2 different ways. So for both cards, I've stamped the design in black and then heat embossed it with clear embossing powder and then colored in the flowers. This card has some extra dimension as I've fussy cut a stamped border and then layered it up with some foam tape. Either way, you have a really pretty and colorful border that works nicely for lots of different themes. So let's start with this card here and take a look at the markers that I used and also how to put together this card design. So I've first stamped and embossed onto the Hunky Dory cardstock and then colored in. Now for my roses, I'm using the pale pink marker. For the postage marks that you see around the outside edge, this is the lavender. I'm also using the dull green to color in the foliage with these little flower buds that you can see around the edges. And then I've used the ice blue marker to highlight that text in the background as we saw earlier. So really easy way to add some color and style to your design. And of course you can swap out those colors and get a completely different look. Now the card design itself is made with the pull-up card cutting die. So our die is this one right here. And this will give you 2 shapes. So you can see you've got your card and then you've got your pull-up mechanism. So you'll die cut one each of those. Of course, you've got a project idea here on the front of the package. When I turn this over, you can see the written instructions, and then you've also got your folding diagram here. Where you see the red, this indicates where we suggest you use the extra sticky tape because this is going to be for your pull-up mechanism, and you want to make sure that that stays nicely in place. So let's have a look at how to put this together. I've die cut 2 pieces here so that you can see. Now the black marker on here is just so that you can really see where those fold lines are. So this is your pull-up mechanism. You've got one folded area here, so you just need to fold and score that. Then for your card portion, of course, you will fold in your 2 side flaps here. You'll fold this portion up, and then you'll fold down the top flap. And this is where you have that really nice scalloped edge. Now, before you secure everything in place, what I like to do is then add in my pull-up mechanism first. And so you're going to take this short end of your tab, align it with the fold here on your scalloped top, and secure that in place. And you do want to make sure that it gets right in the middle here, because when you fold up the bottom portion and secure that in place, that's going to form your pocket. So you want to make sure that you're not off to one side or the other too much there. So then once you've got everything secured in place, you will have a pull-up design that goes like so. Super simple to do and a really fun way to have another style of design. So let me show you again my original card. And you'll notice here that I've got a bunch of different papers at work. So I've die cut my main portion of my card with some lavender cardstock, and the cardstock is coming from the Golden Botanical cardstock pack. So that's going to give me my base piece here. And then I've covered the front with pattern paper, and I've got a nice torn edge here. This is going to give a little bit of softness and a contrast, and it coordinates nicely with the white that I'm using at the top portion of my card. So let's talk a little bit about this top portion here. And I'm going to bring in again my, my demo piece. What you can do is either stamp directly onto this top flap, or you can die cut a second portion of the top flap to glue right on top. And that's what I've done here. So if you can imagine this as white cardstock, that's what I've done here. So then I've got this nice contrasting effect. And you can either stamp your border onto the paper before you die cut it or after. I find it easier to do afterwards. So I've die cut my piece and then stamped right in the center there. And then from there I can do my coloring. And of course at the bottom here, I've got my script dazzle. Up here at the top, I've got a bow tied in some polka dot ribbon. This comes from the White Ribbons collection. And then when I open up my card design, you can see my pull-up mechanism with my dazzle message and a little stamped butterfly. Let's come back to our card with this fussy cut border and talk about how to put this together. So I've stamped and embossed my rose border image twice onto white hunky-dory cardstock. One of those borders is going to be glued across the front of my card, and the second border is going to be cut apart so that I've got 3 individual flowers. So let me show you this, and you can see where I've got stamped and embossed onto one piece of cardstock. So this is my base piece. And then I've stamped and fussy cut, or cut with scissors, around these 3 flowers here in the center. And from here I can do my layering. Now each of these flowers also has a little square of foam tape on the back. And from here what I can do is simply layer each of the flowers on top of their original flower. And this will create a really nice bit of dimension. So I've got this one here. Now the largest flower, so the one in the center, is popped up with 2 layers of foam tape. And that's going to give extra dimension and prevent this from getting a bit too crowded. And then from here I've got my beautiful dimensional border. Now I've of course colored in my rose border here with those tri-blend markers, although I do think this looks really pretty, just black and white. So again, you've got lots of nice options there. Now the text background here is our background image, stamped with black onto the wood grain pattern paper and highlighted with ice blue marker. So let me show you what this looks like before it gets partially covered by our stamped border. So you can just do some alternating horizontal and vertical stamping with that text block, and it really is such a versatile design. Then underneath this border here, I've added some leaves die cut using the Golden Botanical die set. So let me show this one to you. And I'm just using our foliage element here to add in another little bit of dimension onto the front of the card. So those are just tucked underneath here. And while I normally create cards that are a little bit bigger than this card measures 5 3/4 inches across by 5 inches. And to finish it off, I've got a bow tied in 1/8 inch ribbon and then a dazzle message down at the bottom. Then inside, I have another piece of that gorgeous pattern paper. I have another leaf die cut, this time just die cut from white cardstock, and I have a sticker sentiment to finish it off. And that is our final project of the day today. So a big thank you to our friends at Studio Light for another gorgeous stamp set, and a big thank you to you for joining me today. Now down below you will see photos of all of the projects from today's webisode. These stamps and the paper pack are available in a money saver, and you can see that special offer on the right hand side of your screen. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this webisode, you can also get the latest stamps and papers with our monthly Stamping with Sara subscription. You'll be the first to receive the stamp of the month. You'll get that before the webisode airs, and you'll save 10% on the retail price. Now you will also get a free goodie each month, plus a free gift with your membership. And the free gift is the wood grain stamp, which makes a really beautiful background image. And this is also shown on the right side of your screen. Now, if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, we'd love for you to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And please do join us over on paperwishes.com. This is the only place you'll find this fabulous membership subscription. And you'll also see that we create 6 webisodes every week to inspire your creative spirit. Thank you again for joining me today. We're really glad you're here, and we're so happy you're a part of our Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. I'll see you next month for another episode of Stamping with Sara.